Here's some positive news for people who are disabled and have loan debt. Now, it turns out by next month, you won't have any student loan debt. So now the U.S. Department of Education just announced on Thursday that it's canceling $5.8 billion in student debt for more than 320,000 borrowers. Now, this debt forgiveness, which will go to borrowers with a total and permanent disability, will be automatically granted using data already available to Social Security. And it will begin in September. So the Education Department said it also plans to stop asking borrowers to continue sharing earnings data that they after they receive that relief. So you're done with it. Like, that's it. If you're permanently disabled and have student loans, they're gone. $5.8 billion. Now, U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona said this in a statement, quote, "We've heard loud and clear from borrowers with disabilities and advocates about the need for this change, and we're excited to follow through on it. This change reduces red tape with the aim of making processes as simple as possible for borrowers who need support." Now, the Education Department of the Biden administration has also canceled student debt for people who had attended for-profit schools. And so far, right now, for everybody else, there is a pause on student loan repayment until, I believe, January. Look, so this is a positive step. People on disability obviously needed this change. There's no way they could pay student loans back being disabled and on Social Security. Are you kidding me? But that's unfortunately what happened to the hundreds of thousands of Americans that were on disability beforehand. Because if you defaulted on student loans before this change, the government would be able to garnish your Social Security payments as a form of repayment. So now with this change, they can't take your disability. Now, that said, retirees, people who are on Social Security retirement, they are still affected. And this is allowed by the Debt Collection Improvement Act of 1996, in which the government allowed for the garnishment of Social Security benefits, but it set a limit on how much can be offset. So how much? Well, per the act, the government can't take more than 15% of your Social Security payments, nor can it leave you with less than $750 in monthly benefits. So understand that if somebody lives on Social Security, I mean, and that being their sole income, by the way, that 15%, it's not very much. You can't live on that. Or $750? Again, that's an annual income. Put it in real numbers, right? As far as yearly annual payments. How much do you make off Social Security retirement for a year if you're getting $750? It's an annual income of around just $9,000. That's not anything. Barely anything. But there's more. According to data from the Government Accountability Office, around 114,000 borrowers aged 50 and above had their Social Security payments garnished in 2015. Population of people aged 50 to 64 in this situation increased by 407% from 2002 to 2015 and increased 540% for those aged 65 or older. So understand, this is how insane school prices have gone. This is how bad the situation has become. People who are retiring still owe on their student loans, still were not able to pay them off in 30 or so years. And of course, there are older people, and we saw this a lot, during the financial crash of 2008. A lot of people, older people, who lost their jobs as a result of that, going back to school in order to try to get back into the workforce with a new skill, a better skill, or something like that. And a lot of times they just ended up with much, much more debt. And so that's disastrous. That said, people on disability, well, they do get to escape that debt, and that's good. But retirees still have to pay that back, and as well as everyone else. At the start of 2021, there's around 45 million Americans that owed an estimated $1.64 trillion in student loan debt. So understand, when you put that into context, $5.8 billion, barely a drop in the bucket. It's a drop in a pool. And so, and by the way, that was at the beginning of the year. Now that number is around 1.8 trillion. You see where I'm going with this, right? There's only one real solution to this. You have to cancel all the student debt. So now, Joe Biden, he's already shown that he's able to do this. He just canceled $5.8 billion in student loan debt. He could cancel the rest. They have the power. Now, he goes and says, well, we don't. This is an act of Congress. But you have members of Congress, including people I never really expected to say anything. For example, Chuck Schumer says, actually, no, you don't. You don't need Congress. You can do it yourself. Literally, you can do that with a flick of a pen, and he's absolutely right. They could cancel all of it. If Biden can cancel it for a select group of people, he can cancel it for everyone. And it would be a boon, not only for the people who no longer have to be on the hook for that enormous amount of debt, which shouldn't be there in the first place. And understand this. Now, I know there are people that are like, well, I paid off my debt. They should pay off theirs. They took out the loans. Their responsibility, right? The point is, and the way that I, kind of discussed that is, that debt shouldn't have existed in the first place. Education should not cost money. It just shouldn't. Higher education, which is necessary for a lot of advanced fields, and really, a lot of the jobs of today require a post-secondary education. You have to get that. And it shouldn't be, cost should not be a barrier. Because who ends up bearing this cost the most? It ends up being primarily communities of color, which actually have the biggest share of student loan debts and defaults out of everyone. They end up having to borrow more and often get preyed on more by predatory for-profit schools, which again, Biden has thankfully canceled the debt from those schools, but there's still debt that remains. He can do this. And also, let me just say that this isn't about who is more deserving of cancellation, right? Because, if you're going to play that card, that's ridiculous. Oh, well, they deserve it more. No, everybody deserves it. We're all deserving of this because, again, education should have never put anyone into debt in the first place. And while I'm glad to see that this happened and that he is taking initiative to cancel debts for specific groups of people that are the most vulnerable, I think it needs to be expanded to everyone else. The real solution to the system is to cancel the debt and make public colleges and universities tuition free. That's the real goal here. And look, one more thing: the American Families Plan, Biden's one of Biden's policy, goals to get passed through Congress, does seek to make two-year community colleges tuition free, and that's a good start. But I think that we should go the whole way and do the job right, and do the job right now. Cancel all the student debt and try to push a bill through Congress, whether it has to be through reconciliation or not. That will make tuition colleges, public colleges and universities tuition free. That is the right policy. It's the right thing. And by the way, it's something that he would be remembered for, much more than his so-called Saigon moment. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.